Anyone who has ever watched someone they respect get cast aside for doing the right thing will understand exactly what Sarah Brennan felt as she stood at that rain-soaked bus stop, her entire career reduced to a cardboard box balanced on her hip. The cold November drizzle had soaked through her jacket 20 minutes ago, but she barely noticed anymore. Her feet ached in shoes she had polished that morning, back when she still thought she had a job to return to tomorrow, back when she still believed that competence and integrity mattered more than politics and ego. The box was heavier than it should have been. 17 years of service at Redstone Communications did not amount to much when packed into 12 inches of cardboard. A coffee mug her team had given her after the Kansas City Tower crisis. 3 commendation letters she had never bothered to frame. A small, succulent plant that was already wilting. A photo of her and her late husband taken at the company Christmas party. 8 years ago, back when he was still alive, back when she still smiled like that. The weight of those objects pressed into her forearm, but it was nothing compared to the weight sitting on her chest, making each breath feel like work. Route 47 was late. Of course it was late. Sarah checked her phone again, the screen blurring slightly through the rain on her glasses. 16 minutes past the scheduled arrival time. She shifted the box to her other hip and felt cold water seep further into her left shoe. A car passed, its tires throwing up a sheet of dirty water that just missed her legs. She did not even flinch. What was a little more water at this point? The bus shelter offered no real protection. The plexiglass panel on the windward side had been shattered weeks ago, leaving jagged edges that caught the streetlight in odd angles. Someone had spray-painted something incomprehensible across the bench. Sarah did not sit. She just stood there, box on hip, watching the road and trying not to think about what she would tell her daughter when she got home. Emily was supposed to start at State next fall. Sarah had been so proud when the acceptance letter came. Now she was doing math in her head, calculating severance pay against tuition costs, and coming up short every time. A truck rumbled past, its engine loud in the early evening quiet. The industrial park where Redstone had its operations center was emptying out. Second shift had started an hour ago. Sarah knew the rhythms of this place like she knew her own heartbeat. 2300 to 0700, she had worked the night console for 9 years before they promoted her to senior operator, then supervisor, then shift commander. Each step up had felt earned, built on thousands of hours of flawless performance, of crisis management, of keeping communication networks running when weather and equipment and human error all conspired to bring them down. And then Gerald Morrison had arrived. The new vice president of operations had been with the company for exactly 8 months. He came from one of the big defense contractors, brought in by the board to modernize systems and cut costs. Sarah had tried to work with him, she really had. But Morrison had ideas about efficiency that looked good in PowerPoint presentations and collapsed under the weight of reality. He wanted to reduce redundancy in the backup systems. He wanted to automate functions that required human judgment. He wanted to cut staff and increase workload and eliminate what he called unnecessary verification protocols. Sarah had pushed back, quietly at first, then more forcefully when she realized he was not just ignorant, but willfully blind. The communication networks Redstone managed were not just for civilian use. They handled encrypted military traffic, emergency services coordination, air traffic control backup systems. When Morrison proposed eliminating the secondary verification process for priority routing, Sarah had written a detailed memo explaining exactly why that was dangerous. When he ignored it, she had gone to her director. When her director told her to fall in line, she had requested a meeting with Morrison himself. That meeting had been 4 weeks ago. Sarah could still see his face across that conference table, perfectly groomed, perfectly confident, perfectly dismissive. She had brought documentation, system architecture diagrams, incident reports from other companies that had tried similar cost-cutting measures. She had laid it all out calmly and professionally, explaining the risks, offering alternative solutions that could save money without compromising safety. Morrison had listened with the expression of a man waiting for an annoying noise to stop. When she finished, he had smiled that thin smile of his and said, "I appreciate your passion, Sarah, but you need to trust that I know what I am doing. I have managed larger systems than this. The redundancy you are so worried about is exactly the kind of inefficiency that is holding this company back. She had tried one more time. Sir, with respect, the redundancy exists because lives depend on these systems. If we have a cascade failure during a crisis, if you cannot support the direction this company is heading, Morrison had interrupted, then perhaps you should consider whether this is the right place for you. It had not been a suggestion. Sarah had left that meeting knowing her days were numbered. She had not known it would be quite this fast. This morning, Morrison had called her into his office with an HR representative present. Budget cuts, he had said. Restructuring. Your position is being eliminated. They were offering 8 weeks of severance, continuation of benefits for 90 days, and a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent her from discussing the circumstances of her departure. The HR woman had slid the papers across the desk with an apologetic expression that did not reach her eyes. Sarah had not signed. Not yet. The papers were in the box, getting damp. She shifted her weight again, feeling the ache spread from her feet up into her calves. The bus stop was on a stretch of road with nothing but warehouses and industrial buildings. No coffee shop to duck into, no convenience store. Just grey concrete and chain-link fencing and the distant hum of machinery. The sky was that particular shade of November grey that made it impossible to tell if it was 5 in the evening or 7. The streetlights had come on, casting everything in harsh sodium yellow. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emily. How was work? Sarah stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed, fine, and then deleted it. Typed, we need to talk when I get home, and deleted that too. Finally, she just wrote, on my way home now, and hit send. The truth could wait a few more hours. Let Emily have one more evening of not worrying about money, about the future, about whether her mother had just destroyed everything by refusing to compromise her principles, because that was what it came down to, was it not? Sarah could have kept her mouth shut. She could have implemented Morrison's changes and hoped for the best. She could have been a good soldier and followed orders and collected her paycheck and let someone else worry about what would happen when the systems failed. That was what most people did. That was how you survived in corporate America. You learned when to fight and when to fold, and you never, ever made your boss look bad. But Sarah had spent 17 years on the other end of those communication systems. She had been the voice in the headset when pilots needed emergency routing. She had coordinated rescue operations during hurricanes. She had kept networks running during ice storms and power failures and equipment malfunctions that should have brought everything crashing down. She had heard the fear in people's voices when systems failed, had felt the weight of responsibility that came with knowing that her decisions, her competence, her refusal to cut corners could mean the difference between someone living or dying. So no, she could not have kept her mouth shut, even if it cost her everything. A gust of wind drove rain under the broken shelter, and Sarah turned her face away, clutching the box tighter. The cardboard was getting soft. She was going to have to put it down soon, or risk the bottom falling out, spilling 17 years, across wet pavement. The thought made something twist in her chest. She blinked hard and told herself it was just the rain in her eyes. Route 47 finally appeared in the distance, its headlights cutting through the gray. Sarah felt a wash of relief so intense it was almost painful. She could get on that bus. She could go home. She could figure out what came next. She shifted the box again, preparing to move, and that was when she felt it. A vibration, not in her phone, in the ground. It was subtle at first. A tremor that she felt more in her bones than through her feet, like distant thunder, except the sky was not that kind of storm. The vibration grew stronger, rhythmic, powerful, the kind of deep thrumming that you feel in your chest before you hear it with your ears. Sarah frowned and looked around. The bus was still half a block away, slowing for the stop. But the vibration was not coming from the bus. It was coming from behind her, from somewhere over the industrial park, growing louder, growing closer. The bus driver must have felt it too, because the bus stopped completely, still 50 feet from the shelter. The door did not open. Sarah could see the driver's face through the windshield, looking up, looking past her, eyes widening. The sound hit like a physical force, a deep, hammering roar that made the broken plexiglass rattle in its frame. Sarah spun around, nearly dropping the box, and her brain struggled to process what her eyes were seeing. Helicopters, 3 of them, massive, black, flying so low she could feel the downwash starting to tear at her jacket. They came over the warehouses like something out of a fever dream, running lights blazing, the distinctive profile of Blackhawks unmistakable even in the fading light. The noise was overwhelming, drowning out thought, drowning out everything except the primal understanding that something very serious was happening. They were not passing over, they were descending. The lead helicopter dropped, fast, flaring hard to arrest its descent, and touched down in the empty lot across from the bus stop. The other two flanked it, landing in formation with military precision. The rotor wash was hurricane force, tearing at Sarah's clothes, sending her hair whipping around her face. She staggered back against the bus shelter, using her body to shield the box, and watched in absolute disbelief as the side doors slid open. Men poured out. Not men, soldiers. Special forces by the look of them. Full. Tactical gear, weapons held ready but pointed down. 6 from the first bird, 4 from the second. The third helicopter's occupants stayed inside, but Sarah could see movement through the open door. They moved with the kind of fluid coordination that spoke of countless hours of training, spreading out, securing a perimeter, and then one of them, a tall man with a close-cropped beard and lieutenant's insignia on his vest, broke away from the group and started walking directly toward her. Sarah's mind was racing through possibilities and coming up empty. This was not real. This could not be real. Things like this did not happen at bus stops in suburban industrial parks. There had to be some mistake, some explanation, some reason that had nothing to do with her. The lieutenant covered the distance in seconds. He moved like a man with a purpose, and his eyes locked onto Sarah's face with an intensity that made her breath catch. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she had to tilt, her head back slightly to meet his gaze, and when he spoke, his voice cut through the rotor noise with absolute clarity. "Sarah Brennan?" Her mouth was dry. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Ma'am, I need you to come with us. Right now." Sarah's brain finally caught up. What? Who are you? What is this?" "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, ma'am. United States Special Operations Command." He pulled an ID from his vest, held it up for her to see. The photo matched. The credentials looked legitimate. That did not make any of this make sense. "We have been looking for you. We need the operator." "The operator?" Sarah repeated stupidly. The box was slipping. She adjusted her grip, and Webb reached out automatically to steady it, his hand briefly touching hers. His fingers were warm. This was real. This was actually happening. "Yes, ma'am. We were told you are the best. We have a situation that requires your specific expertise, and we need you right now." I do not work there anymore." The words came out flat, surreal. "I was fired today." Something flickered across Webb's face. Surprise, maybe, or anger. It was gone before Sarah could be sure. "We know, ma'am. That is why we came here. We tracked your phone to this location." They had tracked her phone. Special forces had tracked her phone to a bus stop because what? Sarah's mind was struggling to catch up, to make the pieces fit together into something that resembled logic. What situation? What is happening? "Ma'am, I cannot brief you here, but I can tell you that we have a critical communication system failure affecting military operations in 3 theaters. We have been trying to resolve it for 6 hours. Every expert we have says it is impossible to fix remotely. We need someone who knows the Redstone architecture inside and out, someone who can think on their feet, someone who has handled crisis scenarios before." He paused, and his voice dropped slightly. "We were told that person is you. We were told that if anyone can fix this, it is Sarah Brennan." The world seemed to tilt. Sarah was aware of the bus driver still sitting in his vehicle, staring, aware of the soldiers maintaining their perimeter, weapons ready, aware of the rain still falling, though it felt insignificant now compared to the rotor wash, aware of the box in her arms, 17 years of service, everything she had lost today. "Who told you that?" she asked. Webb's expression was grim. "Someone who still works there. Someone who was in the operations center when the failure happened. They said Morrison refused to call you, said you were no longer an employee, said they could handle it themselves. They could not. So this person went around Morrison, contacted military liaison, and gave them your name, said you were the only one who could fix it." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. "What kind of failure are we talking about?" Cascade routing error in the priority network. It started small and propagated. Now we have 3 carrier battle groups operating with degraded communications, special operations teams that cannot coordinate with command, and air support that is essentially flying blind. We have redundancy, but not enough. Not for this. Webb's jaw tightened. Ma'am, people are going to die if we cannot get this fixed. Soon. The weight of that statement hit like a physical blow. Sarah had spent 17 years preventing exactly this kind of failure. She had written memos about it. She had warned them. She had pushed back against Morrison's cost-cutting precisely because she knew what would happen if the systems were not properly maintained, properly monitored, properly respected. And now it had happened anyway. Morrison, she said quietly. He eliminated the secondary verification. Webb nodded. That is what we understand. Yes, ma'am. And now the system is eating itself because there is no check against propagating errors. That is the assessment. Yes. Sarah looked down at the box in her arms. Coffee mug, commendation letters, wilted plant, photo of her and James, both of them smiling. She thought about Emily and college tuition and severance pay that would not be enough. She thought about Morrison's face across that conference table, dismissing her concerns, dismissing her expertise, dismissing 17 years of flawless service because it was inconvenient to his plans. She thought about pilots flying blind, about soldiers who could not call for support, about the people on the other end of those communication systems who were depending on someone to keep the networks running. Sarah looked back up at Webb. I need to make a phone call. Ma'am, we really do not have... One call. 30 seconds. Her voice was steady now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something else. Something that felt like purpose clicking back into place. My daughter. She needs to know I am okay. Webb hesitated, then nodded. Make it quick. Sarah pulled out her phone with one hand, still balancing the box. She called Emily. Her daughter picked up on the second ring. Mom, are you okay? I heard helicopters. I am fine, honey. Listen to me. Something has come up. Work thing. I am going to be late getting home. Maybe very late. Do not worry. I will explain everything when I get back. Mom, what is happening? Are those helicopters for you? Sarah looked at the Blackhawks, at the soldiers, at Lieutenant Webb watching her with patient intensity. Yes, she said. They are. I love you. I will call you as soon as I can. She ended the call before Emily could ask more questions. Then she looked at Webb and said, I need you to understand something. I do not have access to Redstone systems anymore. They revoked my credentials when they fired me. I cannot just walk in there. That will not be a problem, ma'am. We have authorization from the Secretary of Defense. Redstone Communications holds multiple military contracts. When those contracts involve active operations and lives are at risk, the military has certain authorities. We will get you access. Morrison is not going to like that. Webb's smile was not pleasant. No, ma'am, I do not imagine he will. Sarah took a breath. The rain was still falling. The bus was still waiting. Driver watching this scene unfold. Route 47 would have to go on without her. She looked down at the box one more time, then held it out to Webb. Can someone keep this safe for... me? Webb took the box carefully, handed it off to one of his team. Then he gestured toward the lead helicopter. After you, ma'am. Sarah walked toward the Blackhawk, and with each step she felt something shifting inside her. The weight on her chest was lifting. The ache in her feet barely registered. She had spent the last 3 hours feeling like she had lost everything, like standing up for what was right had cost her career, her future, her ability to take care of her daughter. But maybe that was not the whole story. Maybe there was a reason she had refused to compromise. Maybe there was a reason she had pushed back against Morrison's dangerous cost-cutting. Maybe there was a reason she had spent 17 years building expertise that no one else had. A soldier helped her up into the helicopter. The interior was all business, jump seats and equipment racks and the smell of hydraulic fluid and metal. Sarah strapped in, and Webb took the seat across from her. The crew chief was already on the radio, coordinating with someone. The turbine spooled up, and Sarah felt the familiar lurch as the Blackhawk lifted off. Through the open door, she could see the bus stop falling away below, the broken shelter, the spray-painted bench, the place where she had stood in the rain, feeling like her life was over. Webb leaned forward, his voice raised to carry over the engine noise. Ma'am, I need to brief you on what we are walking into. The situation is worse than I indicated. The cascade failure has been propagating for 7 hours now. We have lost primary routing for 40% of priority traffic. The backup systems are overloaded and starting to show signs of instability. If we lose those, we will have complete communications blackout for multiple active operations. Sarah's mind was already shifting gears, moving from shock to analysis. What triggered the initial failure? Best guess is a firmware update that Morrison's team pushed without proper testing. It interacted badly with the existing routing protocols. Of course it did. Sarah felt anger stirring under her professional calm. The secondary verification would have caught that. That is exactly what it was designed for. You test the update in isolation, you verify compatibility, you roll it out in stages with monitoring at each step. You do not just push it live to the entire network. That appears to be what happened, ma'am. How many people are at risk right now? Webb's expression was grim. Directly, thousands. Indirectly, potentially hundreds of thousands if operations have to be suspended or delayed. We have assets in contested areas that depend on secure communications for coordination and support. Without it, they are vulnerable. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. This was her nightmare scenario, the exact situation she had tried to prevent. And now she was being asked to fix it, to step back into a system that had just fired her, to save the people who had dismissed her. Warnings and eliminated her job. The anger was there. She could feel it, hot and sharp. But underneath it was something else. Responsibility, duty. The same thing that had made her speak up in the first place. The same thing that had made her write those memos, attend those meetings, push back against Morrison's arrogance. She had not done those things for recognition or job security. She had done them because lives depended on those systems, and she knew how to keep them running. That had not changed. Her employment status had changed. Her relationship with Redstone Communications had changed. But the fundamental truth remained the same. People needed those networks, and she was the one who knew how to fix them. Sarah opened her eyes and looked at Webb. I'm going to need full access to the system architecture. Root level. No restrictions. You will have it. I am going to need direct communication with whoever is currently running the operations center. Real-time updates on, system status. We can arrange that. And I am going to need Morrison to stay the hell out of my way. Webb's smile was sharp. That, ma'am, will be my pleasure to arrange. The helicopter banked hard, changing course. Sarah could see the city lights spreading out below, the familiar geography of the place she had lived for 20 years. Somewhere down there, Emily was probably pacing their small house, worried and confused. Somewhere down there, Morrison was probably in his office, still, believing he was in control. He was about to learn otherwise. The flight took 18 minutes. Sarah spent it going through scenarios in her head, mapping out the system architecture from memory, identifying likely points of failure and potential solutions. The cascade error would have propagated through the routing tables, corrupting the priority assignments. The backup systems would be trying to compensate, but without the secondary verification, they would be making decisions based on faulty data. It would be like trying to navigate with a compass that was slowly drifting off true north. Every correction would take you further off course. She could fix it. The solution was not simple, but it was possible. She would need to isolate the corrupted routing tables, rebuild them from baseline, and implement a manual verification process until the proper protocols could be restored. It would take time. It would take precision. It would take someone who knew the system inside and out. It would take the operator. The Blackhawk descended toward a building Sarah knew well. The Redstone Communications Operations Center, a 3-story concrete structure in an industrial complex on the east side of the city. She had worked in that building for 17 years. She knew every hallway, every server room, every quirk of the climate control system. She knew which vending machine ate your money and which bathroom had the best water pressure. She knew the people who worked there, or at least she had until this morning. They landed in the parking lot, scattering a few cars that had been parked near the building entrance. The rotor wash set off car alarms. Security lights flooded on. Sarah could see faces at the windows, people staring down at the military helicopters that had just turned their workplace into a landing zone. Webb was out first, then turned to help Sarah down. Her legs were steadier than she expected. The anger was still there, but it was cold now, controlled, focused. She had a job to do. The main entrance was locked, but that lasted about 10 seconds after Webb's team arrived. They did not break anything, just used some kind of electronic override that made the magnetic locks click open. Very professional, very efficient, very much not something you could ignore or dismiss. The lobby was empty except for a security guard who looked like he was trying to decide whether to be helpful or call the police. Webb showed him credentials and said something. Sarah did not catch. The guard reached for his radio, then apparently thought better of it and just pointed toward the elevators. They took the stairs instead. Webb's team moved with that same fluid efficiency. 2 soldiers ahead, 2 behind, Webb and Sarah in the middle. 3rd floor, the operations center. Sarah had walked this route thousands of times, but never like this. Never with armed soldiers clearing the way. The operations center door was propped open. Sarah could hear voices inside, stressed and urgent. She recognized some of them. Jenkins, one of the senior operators. Maria Chen from network monitoring. And Morrison's voice, louder than the others, saying something about containment protocols. Webb went through first. Sarah followed. The operations center was chaos. Every monitor was lit, showing network status displays that were almost entirely red. Sarah could read the situation at a glance. Cascade failure, exactly as she had predicted. The routing tables were corrupted. The backup systems were overloaded. And the people trying to fix it were using the wrong approach, trying to patch individual failures instead of addressing the root cause. Morrison was standing in the center of the room, phone to his ear, tie loosened, face red. He looked up as Webb entered, and his expression went from stress to confusion to outrage in about 2 seconds. "What the hell is this? Who are you? You cannot just—" Webb cut him off with a voice that carried absolute authority. "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, United States Special Operations Command. You are Gerald Morrison, Vice President of Operations?" "Yes, but, sir, your facility is currently experiencing a critical failure affecting multiple military operations. Under emergency provisions of your government contracts, I am authorized to take whatever measures are necessary to resolve this situation. That includes bringing in personnel with appropriate expertise." Webb stepped aside, and Sarah moved forward, into Morrison's line of sight. The recognition hit Morrison like a slap. His face went from red to pale. "You," he said. "No, absolutely not. She doesn't work here anymore. She has no authority. She has all the authority she needs," Webb interrupted. "We were told she is the best person to fix this. Are you telling me that is incorrect?" Morrison's mouth opened and closed. Sarah could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. He wanted to say yes, wanted to maintain his authority, wanted to keep her out. But there were soldiers with weapons in his operations center, and the monitors behind him were screaming failure. And somewhere in his arrogant mind, he had to know that this was beyond his ability to control. "I have people working on it," he said finally. "We are containing the situation." "You are not containing anything." Sarah's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. Every head turned. She saw Jenkins and Maria, and half a dozen other people she had worked with for years, all of them looking at her with expressions that ranged from relief to guilt to desperate hope. "You are making it worse. Every patch you apply is propagating more errors because you eliminated the verification system. The cascade is accelerating. In another hour, you will lose the backup systems entirely, and then you will have nothing." Morrison's jaw tightened. "That is not—" "Show me the routing table status," Sarah said, looking past him to Jenkins. "Primary and backup." Jenkins glanced at Morrison, then at the soldiers, then at Sarah. He made his choice and brought up the displays. Sarah stepped closer, her eyes scanning the data. It was worse than she had thought. The corruption had spread further than it should have been possible in 7 hours. Morrison's team had not just failed to fix it, they had accelerated it with their incompetent interventions. "You pushed another firmware update," Sarah said flatly. "You tried to roll back the original change. We were attempting to restore baseline functionality," Morrison said defensively. "You cannot roll back a propagating error. It does not work that way. All you did was introduce more instability." Sarah turned to Webb. "I need everyone except essential personnel out of this room. I need direct access to the primary server cluster, and I need a communication line to whoever is coordinating on the military side." "Done." Webb said immediately. He looked at Morrison. Sir, you need to clear your people. Out. Now. This is my operations center. Not right now, it is not. Webb's voice had gone very cold. Right now, this is a military emergency, and you are interfering with operations. You can leave voluntarily, or my team can escort you out. Your choice. The standoff lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then Morrison seemed to deflate slightly. Fine, but I am calling corporate counsel. This is completely irregular. You do that, sir. Webb gestured to his team, and 2 soldiers moved to flank. Morrison, not quite touching him but making it very clear he was leaving. Morrison shot Sarah a look of pure venom, then walked out, his expensive shoes clicking on the tile floor. The room seemed to breathe easier, with him gone. Sarah looked around at the remaining operators. Jenkins, Maria, 3 others she knew by face if not by name. Who has been trying to coordinate with the military? A hand went up. Young guy, maybe 25, looked exhausted. That was me, ma'am. Operator Chen. I was the one who contacted the liaison office. I am sorry, I know I went around channels, but Morrison would not listen, and I knew you would know what to do. You did the right thing, Sarah said firmly, and you probably saved lives. Now I need you to get me connected to whoever is managing operations on the military side. I need to know exactly what assets are affected and what their current status is. Chen nodded and moved to his console. Sarah turned to Jenkins. Status report, everything. Not leave anything out. Jenkins pulled up the data, and for the next 10 minutes, Sarah listened to a litany of failures that made her chest tight with anger and fear. The initial firmware update had been pushed at 0900 hours. By 1000, they had started seeing routing errors. By 1100, the cascade had begun. Morrison had refused to acknowledge the severity until 1300, by which time the corruption had spread to 30% of the network. His attempts to patch it had only made things worse. By 1800, they had lost primary routing for multiple military operations. It was now 1933. They had been failing for over 10 hours. All right, Sarah said. She moved to the main console, the one she had sat at for 9 years as a senior operator, the one she had been forced to abandon this morning. Her fingers found the keyboard, like coming home. First thing, we stop making it worse. I'm implementing a freeze on all automatic routing updates. Everything goes manual. That will slow down network response, Maria said, not arguing, just stating fact. Slow is better than wrong. We need accuracy, not speed. Sarah's hands were already moving, typing commands from muscle memory. Next, we isolate the corrupted routing tables. I am creating a quarantine partition. Everything that is suspect goes there. We rebuild from baseline. The baseline is 6 months old, Jenkins said. We will lose all the optimizations. We will lose a lot more if we do not do this. Sarah pulled up the system architecture, the map of connections and nodes and routing protocols that she had helped design. The optimizations can be rebuilt. The baseline is clean. That is what matters. Chen called out from his console. Ma'am, I have Colonel Bradley on the line. He is coordinating from CENTCOM. Put him on speaker. A voice filled the room, rough with stress and lack of sleep. This is Colonel Bradley. Who am I speaking with? Sarah Brennan, sir. I am the senior operator who built most of the architecture you are currently using. I have been brought in to resolve the cascade failure. There was a pause. Then Bradley said, They told me they were sending someone. What is your assessment? The failure is serious but recoverable. I am implementing emergency protocols now. I need you to tell me what your most critical assets are. I can route priority traffic manually, but I need to know where to focus. Bradley did not hesitate. We have a SEAL team conducting an extraction in Syria. They are operating under communications blackout because we cannot guarantee secure routing. They are supposed to exfiltrate in 3 hours, and they need coordination with air support. That is priority 1. Sarah felt her stomach drop. SEALs operating blind, because Morrison had cut corners, because he had ignored her warnings, because saving money had been more important than maintaining the systems that kept people alive. Understood, sir. What else? We have a carrier group in the South China Sea conducting freedom of navigation operations. They need secure communications with Fleet Command. We have air operations over Iraq and Afghanistan that are currently relying on backup systems that are degrading. and we have about 50 other smaller operations that are all affected to varying degrees. Copy that, sir. I am going to prioritize the SEAL team first. I will have secure routing restored for them within the hour. The carrier group will be next. The rest will follow as I can rebuild the network. 1 hour? Bradley's voice was skeptical. My people have been telling me this is a 12-hour fix minimum. Your people do not know the system like I do, sir. Sarah was already working, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Jenkins, I need you on network monitoring. Watch for any instability in the quarantine partition. Maria, you are on backup system status. If anything starts to degrade, I need to know immediately. Chen, you stay on that line with Colonel Bradley. I will feed you updates every 10 minutes. The room shifted into motion. Sarah fell into the rhythm of crisis management, the thing she had done for 17 years, the thing she was better at than anyone else in this building. Her mind was working on multiple levels simultaneously, tracking the cascade failure, identifying clean routing paths, rebuilding the corrupted tables, monitoring system stability. It was like conducting an orchestra where half the instruments were out of tune and the sheet music was on fire. You had to know what each component was supposed to do, how they interacted, where the weak points were. You had to think 3 steps ahead, anticipate problems before they manifested, make decisions with incomplete information. Sarah had always been good at this, better than good. It was why they had promoted her, why they had given her more responsibility, why her teams had the best performance, metrics in the company. It was why Morrison had seen her as a threat. 20 minutes in, she hit the first major obstacle. The routing path she needed for the SEAL team went through a node that was showing instability. She could not risk it. She needed an alternative. Jenkins, give me status on node 773, showing intermittent packet loss. Not critical yet, but trending wrong. Sarah swore under her breath. Node 773 was a key junction. Losing it would cascade into other failures. How long until it fails completely? Best guess? 30 to 40 minutes. Not enough time. Sarah made a decision. I am rerouting around it, pulling up the tertiary path. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. The tertiary path was slower, less efficient, but it was stable. That was what mattered. Tertiary path is not rated for priority traffic, Maria said carefully. It is now. Sarah implemented the change, watched the data flow shift, monitored for signs of overload. The tertiary path held. Not perfect, but functional. Chen, update for Colonel Bradley. SEAL team secure routing will be restored in 30 minutes, using alternative path. Bandwidth will be reduced by 15%, but it will be stable. Chen relayed the information. Bradley's response came back quickly. 30 minutes is acceptable. What about the carrier group? Working on it, sir. Sarah was already shifting focus, analyzing the routing tables for the South China Sea network. The corruption there was worse, more deeply embedded. This was going to take longer. The next 40 minutes were a blur of technical problem-solving and crisis management. Sarah worked with a focus that shut out everything except the data in front of her. She barely noticed when Webb brought her coffee. She did not register the time passing. There was only the network, the failures, the solutions. At 2000 hours, she restored secure routing for the SEAL team. Chen confirmed it with Bradley, and Sarah heard the relief in the colonel's voice. 1 crisis averted. 5 more to go. At 21:15, she had the carrier group back online. Full bandwidth, stable routing, encrypted protocols verified. Bradley sounded almost cheerful when he confirmed it. At 2200, Sarah leaned back in her chair for the first time in over 2 hours and allowed herself a moment to breathe. The immediate crises were handled. The cascade was contained. The backup systems were stable. They were not out of the woods yet, but they were no longer in free fall. Status check, she said. Her voice was hoarse. When had she last had water? Jenkins ran through the numbers. Network stability was at 73% and climbing. The quarantine partition was holding. The manual routing was functioning. They had not lost any additional nodes in the last hour. We are going to make it, Maria said quietly. She sounded surprised. Of course we are. Sarah took a sip of the coffee Webb had brought her. It was cold, but she barely noticed. Chen, update Colonel Bradley. Tell him we are on track for full network restoration by 0200 hours. Chen relayed the message. Bradley's response was immediate. Outstanding work. I do not know who you are, Ms. Brennan, but you just saved a lot of lives tonight. Sarah felt something twist in her chest. Lives. That was what it came down to. Not corporate politics or budget concerns or Morrison's ego. Lives. People depending on systems. Working correctly. People who would never know how close they had come to disaster. Just doing my job, sir, she said. I hope someone is paying you well for it. Sarah almost laughed. Almost. It is complicated, sir. She worked for another 3 hours, rebuilding the network piece by piece, restoring optimizations, implementing new verification protocols to prevent this from happening again. Webb and his team stayed the entire time, a quiet presence that somehow made the work easier. At one point, Webb brought her a sandwich from somewhere. She ate it without tasting it, her eyes never leaving the monitors. At 0147, Sarah implemented the final restoration protocol. The network came back online, fully functional, all routing tables clean, all verification systems active. She watched the status displays turn from red to yellow to green, and felt a wave of exhaustion so profound she had to grip the edge of the console to stay upright. Network restoration complete, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. All systems nominal. Colonel Bradley, you are good to go. Bradley's response was warm. Thank you, Ms. Brennan. Truly, I am putting you in for a commendation. What you did tonight was extraordinary. Thank you, sir. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. I'm glad I could help. She ended the connection and just sat there for a moment, feeling the adrenaline drain away, leaving behind exhaustion and something that might have been satisfaction. She had done it. She had fixed Morrison's disaster. She had saved the network. She had kept people alive. And she had done it all on the same day she had been fired. Webb approached quietly. Ma'am, we should probably get you home. You look like you are about to fall over. Sarah opened her eyes and looked around the operations center. Jenkins and Maria and Chen were all watching her with expressions of gratitude and respect. The monitors showed green status across the board. The crisis was over. Yeah, she said. Home sounds good. She stood up and her legs wobbled. Webb caught her elbow, steadied her. Easy. When was the last time you ate something that was not a sandwich grabbed between crises? This morning? Maybe. Sarah could not quite remember. Right. We are getting you food before we take you home. They walked out of the operations center together, Webb's team falling in around them. The hallways were empty now. It was almost 0200 hours. The night shift would be coming on soon, but for now, the building was quiet. They made it to the elevator before Morrison appeared. He must have been waiting. He stepped out of a conference room as they passed, and his face was a mask of barely controlled fury. This is not over, Brennan. You had no right. I had every right. Sarah turned to face him, and she felt the exhaustion fall away, replaced by cold, focused anger. I had the right that comes from 17 years of flawless service. I had the right that comes from knowing these systems better than anyone else in this building. I had the right that comes from being the only person who could fix the disaster you created. I did not create— Yes, you did. Sarah took a step closer. You eliminated the secondary verification system. You pushed an untested firmware update. You ignored every warning, dismissed every concern, and when the cascade failure happened, you tried to cover it up instead of fixing it. People almost died tonight because of your arrogance. Morrison's face was red again. You cannot prove— I do not have to prove anything. Webb stepped forward, his voice cutting through Morrison's bluster. Sir, I have been documenting this entire incident. The failure, the cause, the response, and the resolution. That documentation will be submitted to the Secretary of Defense, along with my recommendation that Redstone Communications undergo a full audit of their safety and security protocols. I suspect your board of directors will be very interested in reading it. Morrison paled. You cannot do that. We have contracts. You have contracts that include performance and safety requirements, Webb said flatly. You violated those requirements. Whether you keep those contracts will depend on what the audit finds. He paused. And based on what I have seen tonight, I would not bet on a favorable outcome. Sarah watched Morrison's expression shift from anger to fear to something that looked like desperation. She felt no satisfaction in it, no triumph. Just exhaustion and a bone-deep weariness with people like him, people who valued profit over safety, ego over competence. politics over human lives. You should have listened, she said quietly. I tried to tell you. I tried to warn you. You could have avoided all of this. She turned and walked away, and this time Morrison did not follow. Webb's team had vehicles waiting outside. Not the helicopters, just unmarked SUVs that looked military, but did not advertise it. They drove Sarah to an all-night diner 3 blocks from her house. Webb bought her breakfast, actual breakfast, eggs and bacon and toast and orange juice, and she ate it slowly, feeling her body start to recover. What happens now? She asked, when the food was gone. Webb leaned back in the booth. Now we file our reports. The audit happens. Morrison probably loses his job, possibly faces criminal charges if the investigation finds evidence of negligence or fraud. Redstone Communications either cleans house or loses their military contracts. He paused. And you, ma'am, become a person of significant interest to several government agencies. Sarah blinked. What does that mean? It means you just demonstrated a level of expertise that is very rare and very valuable. It means people are going to want to hire you. It means you have options. Webb smiled slightly. Good options. Well-paying options. Options that come with security clearances and the knowledge that you are doing important work. I just want to take care of my daughter, Sarah said quietly. You will be able to. And then some. Webb slid a business card across the table. That is my direct line. You are going to get calls in the next few days. People offering jobs. Some of them will be legitimate, some will not. If you need help figuring out which is which, call me. Sarah picked up the card, turned it over in her fingers. Thank you for everything. Thank you, ma'am. You saved a lot of lives. Tonight, Webb stood up. Come on, let me get you home. They drove the last 3 blocks in silence. Webb walked her to her door, waited while she found her keys, made sure she got inside safely. Then he nodded once and walked back to the SUV. Sarah stood in her living room and looked around at the familiar space. The couch she and James had bought 12 years ago. The bookshelf full of Emily's childhood books. The photos on the wall, family moments frozen in time. It was 03:30 and the morning. She had been awake for 22 hours. She had been fired, recruited by special forces, and had saved military operations in 3 theaters. It had been a very long day. Emily appeared in the hallway, wrapped in her bathrobe, eyes wide. Mom, what happened? Are you okay? I have been going crazy. Sarah crossed the room and pulled her daughter into a hug. I am okay. I am sorry I worried you. It is a very long story. The news is saying there were helicopters at your work. They are saying something about a military emergency. It was, and I helped fix it. Sarah pulled back, looked at her daughter's face. Baby, I have some things to tell you. About today. About what happened. But first I need you to know that we are going to be okay. Better than okay. I promise. Emily searched her face. You are sure? I am sure. They stayed up for another hour, Sarah telling a carefully edited version of the day's events, leaving out the parts that would give Emily nightmares. When her daughter finally went back to bed, Sarah sat alone in the dark living room and let herself feel everything she had been holding back. The fear, the anger, the exhaustion, the satisfaction, the strange, unexpected sense that maybe getting fired had been the best thing that could have happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Brennan, this is Colonel Bradley. I wanted to reach out personally to thank you again. What you did tonight was remarkable. I have submitted my commendation to the secretary. You should expect to hear from some people in the next few days. People who will want to talk to you about opportunities. I hope you will consider them. We need people like you. Sarah read the message 3 times. Then she looked around her living room again, at the life she had built, at the future that had seemed so uncertain this afternoon. People like you, people who did the right thing even when it cost them, people who had the expertise and the courage to act when it mattered, people who understood that some things were more important than politics or profit or personal advancement. The operator. Sarah smiled, set down her phone, and finally let herself sleep. 3 days later, Morrison was placed on administrative leave pending the results of the audit. 5 days after that, Redstone Communications offered Sarah her job back, with a promotion and a significant raise. She declined. She had better offers by then, much better offers. 2 weeks. After that, Sarah started her new position as Senior Systems Architect for the Defense Information Systems Agency. The salary was almost double what Redstone had paid her. The work was challenging, important, and came with the knowledge that she was helping protect people who put their lives on the line every day. Emily's tuition was no longer a concern. Neither was the mortgage, or the car that needed replacing, or any of the dozen other financial worries that had kept Sarah up at night. But, more than that, Sarah went to work every day knowing that her expertise was valued, that her judgment was trusted, that when she raised concerns about safety or security, people listened. She had found a place where competence mattered more than politics, where doing the right thing was rewarded instead of punished. 6 months later, she received an official commendation from the Secretary of Defense, presented at a small ceremony attended by Colonel Bradley, Lieutenant Webb, and a handful of other people who understood what she had done that night. The citation praised her technical expertise, her calm under pressure, and her dedication to protecting military personnel. Sarah kept the commendation in her office, next to the photo of her and James. Sometimes when the work was hard or the bureaucracy was frustrating, she would look at it and remember that night. Remember standing at a bus stop in the rain, feeling like she had lost everything. Remember the sound of helicopters. Remember Lieutenant Webb saying, "We need the operator." Remember proving that quiet competence, moral courage, and 17 years of expertise were worth more than any amount of corporate politics. She had been right to speak up, right to push back, right to refuse to compromise on safety even when it cost her job. And in the end, that integrity had not destroyed her career. It had opened doors she had never imagined. Sometimes the system fails. Sometimes the people in power make the wrong choices. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything you have built. But sometimes, if you are lucky, there are people out there who recognize real competence when they see it. People who understand that expertise matters. People who know that the quiet professionals who keep the systems running are the ones who truly have power. Sarah Brennan had spent 17 years being that professional, and when the moment came, when lives hung in the balance, she had been ready. Not because she expected recognition or reward, but because that was who she was, the operator, the person who showed up and did the work and kept people safe. And in the end, that was enough.